Ongoing obligation to declare interest, and switch off your mobile phone, please, and also turn your tablet to mute. Overview of today's business. We have one departmental briefing on the consultation on the planning agreement between DOE and George Best City Airport. Apologies. We have apologies from Lord Morrow and Colin Eastwood. Members, are you aware of any other apologies? Gary as well. Okay. Chairperson's business. Just very briefly mention to members that just on Tuesday I met with the Rural Community Transport Partnership Network, and Cahill was able to come in as well. Unfortunately, we really didn't have a lot of time to talk to them. We just had a few minutes in between, coming back to the further consideration stage and of the bill and question time. So essentially, what they are saying is, and also a paper from them is tabled. Members in your pack. They are concerned about the change from proposed three-tier system to two tiers, and they would be on the top tier combined with the commercial operators, and they're worried about then the DRD grant and whether they're going to be able to compete. So, members, we are going to have a departmental briefing in April. Certainly, we can circulate that paper, and we can send their paper ahead of that briefing to the department. And also, we're meeting with the permanent secretary and his team, and we can certainly ask the permanent secretary on that.
Yeah. Yes, I was able to meet with them too for a considerable amount of time, and it was a very interesting meeting. So I think it would be good to have that briefing from the department on the issues raised. The group were hoping to meet with the Minister actually that day, but I'm not sure whether it went ahead or not because of the delay
the debate.
Debate. So.
Yeah. So, they would very much want to retain the proposed three-tier system. They will be in the second tier, whereas commercial will be on the top tier. So, members, if you agree that we send the paper to the department and talk to the Minister, to the permanent secretary and his team next week. Cahill, you want to come in? Yeah. Sorry.
No, Chair. I thought it was a worthwhile meeting. Obviously, this issue's ongoing now for a number of years, and they've been out to consultation on 2 or 3 occasions. I certainly would support the three-tier measure, and welcome obviously the opportunity to get a briefing from the department in relation to it. But it's something we need to resolve. You see the good work they're doing on a voluntary basis, and the three-tier I think would be very appropriate. So it's good to meet them the other day, but we just need to keep it on the agenda to ensure that we get a resolve or proper solution for them. Okay, thank you.
What we need to think all the time is about services to the consumer, and not in favour of one or the other, commercial or the voluntary sector, but quality of services and what's best for a consumer must be at the top of our mind.
Through you, Chair, the main issue is obviously there's a pot of money there from each department to deliver those services. The problem that we see is that, and going to the meeting the other day, that each department's operating in their own silos in this matter, instead of collectively working together to try and deliver. So it seems to me that one department's waiting for another to make a decision, and then they'll follow suit. Clearly, we need to get the departments together to deliver the programme together, because there's pots of money out of each department, like DRD, certainly DOE, DSD as well. So let's see, can we get a collective, once they do come to us, see can we get a collective working partnership across the department.
To be fair to the department, is the difficulty of the interpretation of the word commercial, because the voluntary sector, they also charge at each trip, although they're subsidised, but they still have to charge, so they can be deemed as commercial. And is that interpretation of commercial under EU really guidance that it is a big difficulty for them. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Chair, okay, just on the point, I mean, I understand that, Chair, but the reality is, if each department had to carry out their own duties and delivering each of them programmes in the rural areas, it would cost them a lot more. That's what I'm saying to you. So I don't think, I understand the commercial element of it, but I think there's an opportunity to address that under this piece of legislation. That's what I'm saying to you. Because if DRD had to follow their door-to-door and everything else, and each department was acting individually, it would cost quite a lot more. So let's try and get it nailed down right across the departments. But initially, DOE have the responsibility in terms of legislation, you know. But it's gone on far too long, Chair.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
Chair, too, obviously I'm new to this subject altogether, but I think actually Department of Health actually should have a role to play within
Absolutely.
the budget
Yeah.
of this particular issue as well, because it's vital actually for TYC that this service remains there
Yeah.
amongst the voluntary sector. So.
Yeah. True. Yep. Okay, members. The next item is that we're just to remind members that we're going to have an informal meeting with the Permanent Secretary next Tuesday, 4th of March, from 12:30 to 2 o'clock in room 29. Members, if you have any items you would want to include into the agenda, please let the Secretariat know as soon as possible. Okay. Have we got the list of items that members can look at?
We can email that.
Do you want to email
yeah.
that? We can, yes.
Yeah.
We can email them
Okay.
out.
Members at the Secretariat will circulate around the agenda at the moment. So if there are anything you want to add to it, this is with the Permanent Secretary meeting. 12:30 to 2 o'clock during lunchtime, really, on Tuesday. Yeah. We'll provide some sandwiches.
We'll get some lunch
Yeah,
for
we'll
you.
get some sandwiches. Yeah. Okay, so we'll circulate the draft agenda, and if there are anything you want to add onto it, please do so. Draft minutes, members, at page 6. Members, you content to approve the minutes? Okay. Then matters arising at page 14. We have a departmental reply regarding legal advice on taxis at Ravenhill Rugby Ground. The department has clarified that the legal advice had not previously been provided to the committee as indicated during the meeting on the 6th of February. Members have now been provided with a copy of the legal advice. Members, have you any comment on that? You content to note? What they're saying is really if someone booked it in their name as an organisation, that's permissible.
Chair, just give us a brief outline of what they're saying, sorry.
Hold on. What they're saying is, sorry, I've lost my page. I'll go back to it. What they're saying is if an organisation booked in advance in their name a number of taxis, for an event, that is legal.
But Chair, surely the question was that there was a counter-argument, there was a piece of advice there that wouldn't be the case. I mean, there's two interpretations, I think, across the legislation here. But I mean, we'll come back to it. Obviously, there's a response today, but I don't think that was the issue. I think, especially from those people who were asking the questions in the first place, were asking exactly what legislation they were quoting this legal advice on. But I'm willing to note it today, the response, but I'll have to come back to it.
Okay.
Legal advice is there?
Yeah, the
No,
legal
no,
advice.
I understand, but the legal advice that was given in relation to this, it's all down to which piece of legislation the interpretation was being given on, the legal advice being given on. I think that was the question, but I'm willing to note, Chair, and I'll have to come back. Just can't give me page.
What are you on?
It's on page, from page 13. It's quite, 15. Not 15 on.
It specifies the regulations that the department has used for its interpretation in the legal advice.
On the what piece of legislation, Chair, can you quote it?
From 15 to 16.
It's the Public Service Vehicles Northern Ireland Regulations 1985, Taxis Act 2008, the Taxis Operator Licensing Regulations 2012.
Yeah.
There's three pieces of legislation that are specified there in the introduction paragraph on page 15.
No, say it, Chair, but yeah, that's grand. I mean, I accept what they're saying in this. All I'm saying is, as far as I remember, some of the other regulations brought forward in the new Act may have superseded that or something. That's all I'm saying. It may be something that we need to look at, but it's grand. I'll accept that today, but I may need to come back again, because that actually was the question, whether or not this piece of legislation and what they were going on would stand up or not. That's all the question those people were asking at that time. But I will come back to it again. I have to get another. There's another paper on it, but I'll come back to it.
Okay, fair enough. So then we moved on to the next one at page 17. That's departmental reply regarding small bus permits and bus operator licensing, a bit similar to the table paper you have from the Rural Community Transport Partnership. The committee forwarded correspondence to the department from St Mark's Church in Portadown on the issue of small bus permits. The department has responded that no final decisions on the proposals for changes to the bus operator licensing regime have been made yet, but it is intended that the majority of voluntary and community groups would see no significant practical change in the way in which they currently operate. The department plans to consult on its final proposals, and all those involved with public transport will have an opportunity to respond then. The department has acknowledged that a number of voluntary organisations have expressed similar concerns and has urged them to contact officials in its Road Safety and Vehicle Regulation Division. A departmental briefing on this issue has been scheduled for us for the 3rd of April. Members, are you content to note this at the moment and forward a copy of the reply to the original correspondent? Or have you any comments on this?
No.
Okay, then, members, then we have the next item is a tabled item, press release on the committee's report on the local government bill. If I let members have a couple of minutes to read over it, just in your table pack. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay, members content with it? And they'll be issued next Monday. Yeah. Okay. Right here, then, next item is statutory rule, page 24, members. Then it's an SR, the Planning General Development Amendment Order NI 2014. The order will introduce permitted development rights for development ancillary to mining operations and provide permitted development rights for the installation, alteration or replacement of an air source heat within the curtilage of a dwelling house. The committee considered the SL1 for this rule on the 6th of February 2014 and was content for the department to make the rule. The rule is subject to the negative resolution procedure and came into operation on the 3rd of March 2014. The the examiner has made no comment on the RU in its latest report. Can I put to members now, the Committee for the Environment has considered SR 2014 number 31, the Planning General Development Amendment Order number NI 2014, and has no objection to the RU. Members content with that?
Agreed.
Members agree? Yep. Next then, next one is item number 6, departmental briefing on consultation on the planning agreement between DOE and George Best City Airport. On the 21st of March 2012, the George Best City, Belfast City Airport formally submitted a request to the department to vary the terms of the planning agreement to include the removal of the seats for sale limit, the introduction of a noise control contour cap, and other noise control measures. A previous public consultation process was held, eliciting about 1,300 responses, and a synopsis of the issues raised was provided to the committee in early August 2012. The department subsequently requested further information from the airport in relation to noise, habitats and traffic. This information was provided in December 2013. A public consultation on the information began on Monday, the 6th of January 2014, and will end on Monday, the 3rd of March 2014. Departmentals will brief us on the consultation, and the briefing paper is at page 39. If I can welcome Simon Kirk, Strategic Planning Division, Scott Simonton, Principal Planning Officer, and Nicole Thompson. You're very welcome, and thank you for sending a very detailed briefing paper as well. So if you can give us a presentation on your paper, and then follow-up questions and from members, please.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chair. As you'll probably recall, myself and the Chief Planner were here in January last year, following the discussion with Mr Ambrose from the airport, and we gave quite a detailed briefing and some detailed discussion on the process with the airport saga up until that point. As I say, at the moment, subsequent to that, then we'd advised that we were awaiting a further amended submission from the airport in terms of the proposal for the modification of the planning agreement. And as you say, that was received on the 6th of December, and the consultation process for that closes on Monday. To date, we've had 6 responses, and 4 of those are from consultees, and 2 are from the public. One is from the Hollywood Residents Association, expressing no objection in principle to the replacement as long as it's replaced with a noise control measure. We would expect that the main objections from what we would see as key stakeholders like the International or Belfast Airport Watch would probably come in within the last couple of days. At this point, I mean, I wouldn't propose to go through in any detail, of the submission, which is extensive, as you can imagine. It covers a range of environmental information, from noise through to habitats, and also significant economic information in support of the proposal. I mean, the department's stance in this process is neutral, quite purposely going into the public inquiry. So what we intend to do then is, once the consultation process has finished, and just for information as well, Belfast City Council, who are a statutory consultee in the process, have asked for a short extension because they need to produce a corporate view on behalf of the council, because they obviously have their economic side of the organisation plus the environmental health side. And so once we've got that, then we will obviously take on board what our consultees have said and what the public have said. We then have our own noise experts. Noise, as you know, is a key issue in the process, and our experts then have to evaluate the information that's been put in. So at that point then we have to decide whether we have enough information to request that the Planning Appeals Commission convene the public inquiry again. But it's clearly our expectation that it won't be that straightforward. We think there will be at least another request for information to provide clarification on a number of issues. I think the Council have already indicated that. And Belfast International Airport have also given an indication that they will be seeking clarification on the issues. So it's our best guess at the moment that there will have to be another round of clarification information, and we would hope then to be writing to the Planning Appeals Commission at some point in the summer. And our best guess then would be that we would try to get the public inquiry reconvened for the autumn. As I say, this has been going on quite some time, but I mean, it's in everybody's interest, as we talked about last time, to ensure that the information is as robust as possible, because this is far from straightforward. And at the end of the day, what we need is a comprehensive recommendation from the Planning Appeals Commission, which is independent. And the question for the Environment Minister, and potentially other ministers as well, is where does the planning balance lie here in terms of what economic benefits there may be for the growth of Belfast City Airport, or disbenefits, as some would argue, versus the environmental impact, and in particular noise on the conurbation within which it exists. As we discussed last time, the airport is one of only 2 city airports identified in a European directive. London City is the other one, identified as such because it does exist in a very noise-sensitive environment. So the general policy, the aviation strategy for the UK, talks about each case on its merits, and clearly you have to recognise and allow airports to grow because of their benefits as a gateway to the region and so forth. Versus the balance against the impact on the surrounding environment and residents that are there. As I say, we're very confident that this process will succeed, but as I say, we have to be very, very careful. The process, going back into the 1990s, has a history of legal challenges. As I say, this has been as open and transparent as we can possibly make it. And as I say, once we get the consultation responses in and closed, then what we would intend to do is update the committee. First of all, at each key stage, as we did last time, we would provide a synopsis of the main responses to the consultations. And at each key point that we think is the relevant key point, we would clearly brief the committee, and be quite happy to come back to talk about it at any stage. But as I say, the department's position is neutral, quite purposely, as the former minister said when he announced the process, to get an entirely independent recommendation to find out where the ultimate planning balance lies. As I say, I mean, obviously we've given a summary of, and it is a summary. As you can see, the full submission goes to 3 major files, and I'm conscious that I'm not sure it would hold your attention greatly, but I'm quite happy to talk about any particular aspect of it. But in terms of the technical information, most of it is technical. As planners, we can't really comment on that at the moment until we've actually heard from statutory consultees. And obviously, Department for Regional Development have a key statutory role as airports go, and they will be involved in the process. Also, we've engaged DETI as well, who have responsibility, obviously, for their portfolio, but also the issue of connectivity. So there's an officer in there who deals that, because there will be a lot of debate in this public inquiry about the overall Northern Ireland transport market, because there are those out there who believe that whilst growth of airports is good, the growth of one over the other, the international in particular, is not good for the region, because that takes away from them, that impacts in competition with Dublin and all of those kind of arguments. So this isn't just DOE or the agencies within DOE, it's actually cross-departmental as well. So there's a bit of a way to go, and it's certainly not an easy process, but we're confident to the point we've got now that we will get a result at the end.
When you talk about the competition with Dublin, I just got an email yesterday, I think, an expat from here living in Canada, and saying, you know, it's so much cheaper for them to fly to Dublin, and their friends going to Dublin, and then from Dublin airport to come up here.
Yeah.
Or some don't bother then to come up here.
Yeah.
And just stay down south.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a difficult balancing act. You know, we need to develop the international airport as well as the city airport. So
That's
that,
right.
so that the international airport can compete better with Dublin.
Absolutely, and this is a key regional issue because, I mean, the Belfast City Airport would say that they are a regional airport and they don't intend to be anything else. It's primarily Ireland's, Great Britain, and they've got some European destinations, city destinations, and they would want to expand some sun destinations, but they would argue that they have no intention and, in fact, couldn't become an international airport. And I think from the information they've put in, I think they're currently got about 33% of the market at the moment, and if they get what they want by 2025, they would have about 37% of the market. So again, that's their stated position. They would say that they don't intend to become an international airport, but clearly there are issues in there that planning can't advise on until we've heard from the relevant authorities to what their view on that is.
You didn't say in your summary whether or reconfirm that even if we're taking away this number for seats for sale, the number of flights are still going to be the same. Is that right?
Yes, at the moment the agreement, as it was agreed in 2008, allows up to 48,000 air transport movements. At the moment they are about 40,000 a year, and the seats for sale restriction then is set at 2 million, and I think at the moment they're about 1.8 million or thereabouts. They give us information on a bi-monthly basis, which obviously we share with yourselves. So if the seats for sale restriction is removed, it would allow them, they can go up to 48,000. They're not proposing that that's changed, but what we're saying is you can't remove the seats for sale restriction until we've got this noise contour agreed, which means the purpose of that is the seats for sale, as we talked about last time, the seats for sale restriction is not a good restriction. It's an indirect restriction, and it's unique to the airport, but it's the only restriction that's there that prevents the noise situation becoming sort of worse than it is. If we remove that and replace it with a noise control contour, it gives the airport operational flexibility because they can use whatever types of aircraft or whatever routes they want, as long as on a yearly basis they stay within that noise control cap. So it gives them much more flexibility and commercial certainty, but it also then gives surrounding residents the control to know that there is an actual control there that the department can monitor and ensure that there is the control there. If they go beyond that, then that can be addressed.
How does it work? I know we said, the control contour map and all. How does it work? I mean, in layman's term, I don't quite understand it.
Nor do we entirely, but yes, no. So obviously, the airport and ourselves have employed in the private sector consultants on this, but basically, it's a geographical ring around the airport, which is calculated over 92 summer days, where it is effectively an averaging. There's a track keeping system there which monitors the noise of planes going in and out, and it takes an averaging over 92 days in the summer, and the average noise is then plotted in a ring, so it's shaped like a long oval around the runway.
Yeah, I've seen the map.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
A bit like mountains, the kind of contours.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's pretty much like that. So as I say, it's an averaging of noise, and it's calculated through computer modelling. So the idea would be in the agreement is to have a clause in the agreement which more or less says, there's a similar one in Stansted, where as long as on a yearly basis they will provide us information to demonstrate that they have remained on an average within that cap, then they're in compliance with the agreement. But clearly then we have to, as part of this, we have to consider there's different noise bands within that contour, and those will affect different areas in and around Sydenham and so forth in different ways. But that is, in layman's terms, essentially how it works.
Okay. Ian, do you want to come in? Ian McGregor.
Yeah, I suppose my attitude is get on with it, I suppose I don't represent this constituency or live near it, so maybe it's easier for me to say that. I mean, you have to be careful, given my dad's MP for Southampton that deals with the international airport, but nonetheless, in your document, you refer to the next steps in the process and the rescheduling the PAC inquiry. Is there well, I suppose you can never put a timescale on any public inquiry to an extent. What is there a timescale that you have in mind in respect of this? Are you far away from getting all the outstanding information from all the consultees? Is there an issue with that, getting that responses back? Or, so I'm interested just the timescale as to where you see it to get to that process, and then the likely period that after that.
Sure. As I say, the consultation process closes on Monday, and there may be a couple of late consultations. What will happen is the main stakeholders, I think, will come in the last couple of days. As I say, we would expect, on the basis of that, once we've looked at that, we will probably have to ask the airport for some clarification information. But we've been pushing them for a long time because obviously it's in everyone's interest to get this resolved as quickly as possible. But as long as we get through that and there isn't a legal challenge coming up to the inquiry, we would hope that the inquiry would take place in the autumn. It's very difficult. Our best guess, the inquiry, given the complexity of it, we know from the previous pre-inquiry meeting that there could be at least 28 witnesses and at least 9 topic areas to get through. So you could be talking between anything between a week and 3 weeks. I know our senior counsel thought it could last up to 3 weeks. So if that happened in the autumn, which is our best estimate at the moment, then clearly the Plan Appeals Commission, that's a huge body of work for them to come to take away and look at. So I would imagine you'd be talking at best sometime early in the next year for an actual delivery of a decision or a recommendation to the Environment Minister on where the planning balance lies. So that it's very difficult to tell on something of this size, but that's our best guess at the moment.
From what I'm hearing, the department sort of see some benefits in trying to move this forward. Have the department at least formed an opinion as to where the seats for sale issue should be removed, or is it holding back until the outcome of this?
Well, we're firmly of the opinion in principle that the seats for sale should be removed, but the problem is we can't remove it until there's a replacement noise control, and this has been debate for some years. This has been, as I say, been going. This is now the third process since the 1990s. So we definitely do not believe that seats for sale is an appropriate or really effective tool. So,
instrument, I think you said before.
Yes, I think that's what we used. Yeah. But that's essentially it. It's indirect because if you control the amount of seats for sale, that indirectly controls the size of the aircraft and so forth. But the reason we need the public inquiry is because there are issues there that we cannot make a decision until we understand with the relevant experts in the room to debate a lot of these issues. Because it is a very important balance here, and we can't do it without knowing all the facts. So it's difficult. In principle, yes, we want it removed and we want a noise control cap put in place. The question for us is what size should that control cap be? And the airport have suggested one, which is about 7.5 kilometres wide, but clearly it's allowing them to be noisier than they are at the moment, and more people will be affected. That's just the reality. So the balance on the other side of that is the economics. And again, that's another issue where we need expert opinion and debate on, because as I said, it's not just about the direct jobs, which will be created if the airport's allowed to expand, and everyone knows it'll be good for tourism and inward investment connection to the likes of Frankfurt, Paris and places like that. But again, there is this whole debate around the competition with the international and what does that mean for regional connectivity. So with the best will in the world, we simply couldn't. We haven't been informed enough to make a decision at the moment. So that's why we need. But certainly in principle, yes, we want the seats for sale removed. Yeah.
You say you can't. Is it a case of you could, but because of the potential legal challenge, you feel that you can't?
I'm not going to lie. We're being careful about legal challenge. But the reality is, if we made a decision now and made our best efforts to make the decision, and we were challenged on the grounds that we weren't informed enough, I think it would succeed, because we simply don't know at the moment. That's just the truth of it.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Carol?
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks very much for the presentation. And obviously this has been going on for a long time. And I mean, like Ian, I'm not going to get involved because obviously there's sensitivities in terms of those people who are making objections, and also the issue of the benefit to the area and the region. And it's an unusual one in terms of condition, in terms of the seats for sale. I mean, you know, as basic planning law, that was an unusual condition. It was put in, but it was put in. I'm just wondering, just obviously about the noise, because it's not just the noise issue and actually physical noise, but it's time bound as well when you can operate. That's part of the process, you know, the amount of days and what times during the day. And also probably technology will play a part in this process. And you were saying there that, you know, they're entitled to 48,000 flights, is that correct? But still only use 40,000?
Yeah.
The argument would be if there's no point in having 48,000 flights if there's planes are half empty, you know, that whole argument that we've discussed. But I'm just trying to get at, you know, obviously there's inquiry on where we would see a resolve to this here. I mean, in terms of, I know people are concerned about bigger planes and all of that there, but I'm sure in terms of noise pollution issue, the new technologies, I mean, is there something being talked about within the company to try and address that issue, the type of planes? And also then, on that side now, that may sound to an outsider that I'm in favour of looking at this. I'm not, I'm just asking the question. But in terms of the other side of it, where you say that the airport wants to expand the nice radius or zone, whatever case, would you like to comment on relation to them both issues and where both sides are coming from in relation?
Yeah. Sure. Under the current planning agreement, this is obviously only one part of the planning agreement they're looking at to change, but there are a number of other restrictions, like you say, the time. But one of the other things is that the type of plane is restricted as well. You're not allowed planes in which are marginally Chapter 3 compliant. In fact, most of them are Chapter 4 compliant now. But the idea as well of having the noise contours as opposed to the seats for sale restriction is that it gives the airport flexibility in terms of their fleet mix. And what will happen then, in theory, as technology gets better and planes do get quieter, which they will and they have been doing, is that they will then be able to use, in theory, more planes or bigger planes if they want, because as the technology increases, as long as they stay within that noise envelope. So that, as you say, is a big plus for them, because it gives them flexibility, you know, and it encourages them as well to use the latest technology to keep the planes as quiet as possible.
And in terms of the public and the idea of expanding out the zone itself, is there
the actual contour
contour gap? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, at the moment, I mean, this is clearly what they've put in here is a projection ahead to 2025, and they have not indicated to us certainly that they would look to seek to expand that beyond. I mean, the very clear impression is that this would be a be-all and end-all limit, and as I say, they believe that would serve their interest as a regional airport, and they would have no further.
If you really have to take it into account, it's a very densely populated area.
No, I understand that, Chair. I'm just trying to tease out the plan issues. Now, and just finally, in relation to obviously the international airport and their concerns, one could argue it's down to the market and it's down to competition. I mean, clearly there's two different elements there in what Belfast City is trying to do and what the internationals do. I can only speak from the part of the country that I come from. I mean, it's regularly used. Dublin Airport's regularly used. I mean, you know, and generally speaking, most people, you know, they're vying for the cheapest flights and the best value for money. That's what it's about. Yeah. But other than what's the main concerns, to your knowledge, that the international is bringing forward, or can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, the international clearly are a commercial competitor. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. They would argue, obviously, in their submissions that, I mean, they acknowledge that, but what they say is they simply want a level playing field. Here, they want to make sure that this process is done correctly and in line with environmental law and everything else. But clearly, they are commercial competitors. Where we have to be very careful is there's a fine line between we cannot take commercial competition into account, but what we can and absolutely have to take into account is regional benefit or disbenefit. and the economics comes into that.
Economic benefit or impact, whatever
Yeah,
it may be.
exactly. So we have to. There's a fine line between assessing through this process what the best thing is in the public interest for the region, in terms of the balance between the two airports, without crossing the line and getting into the area of commercial competition, which is not a public interest matter, not within the remit of planning in any event. So that is a fine line there. But the reality is, yes, they are commercial competitors, and you know, the competition has been fierce, and that this process has shown that over the last number of years.
Is it a problem for you with us not having an aviation strategy, then for you to do that balancing act?
Well, the UK aviation strategy, which was...
But we don't have one.
No, we don't have one, and I know that's been the subject of some debate because, to a certain extent, the airports thing is a devolved matter. Our regional development strategy really broadly encourages the growth of both airports, but it doesn't get into the detail of one airport versus the other. And I know certainly the view of Belfast City Airport would be that that shouldn't be the case anyway, but I know there is an area there that has been debated for some time, is should, at a local level, through the regional development strategy, regional transport strategy, should we be saying something about the relative growth of both airports? But that's not the case, and I think it's this process that will probably find the balance there, as opposed to a regional strategy, because I think to come up with that kind of policy, you'd probably have to go through a process similar to this in any event.
Okay. So,
Just
now go on.
finally, Chair, I appreciate you letting me back in. There is one thing that should come out of all of this here, because looking forward to developing a plan for the future, we need to ensure we learn from this here, because in some cases we don't want to see in the future that we're going to be tied up in all this issue in particular has gone on for 5 years, and there's a number of others in terms of planning strategy and the SPPS and all of that goes along with it. Hopefully there's lessons learned by the time we get through this process, because we want to plan a system that will grow and develop economically and on all other aspects and get the balance right. But we don't want a policy that will enable us to actually do nothing. And arising from that, we need to be able to ensure we make faster decisions, more efficient, but the right decision, obviously, in some cases. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, thank you. And thanks very much for that. You did mention I think it was a noise cap. Is there currently a noise cap?
No, there's not. There are a number of measures within the agreement which would indirectly control noise, such as the number of aircraft movements and the time and the type of aircraft, but there is no actual noise control in place. The 2008 agreement had a clause in it to say that a noise control contour would be agreed between the airport and the department, but that was never agreed. As I say,
How far back is that?
That was the 2008 agreement. There was an examination in public in 2006, which the 2008 agreement came out of, and the examination in public in 2006 actually recommended a contour, but that didn't make its way into the planning agreement. There was a clause in the planning agreement which said that an airport or a clause had to be agreed, but that was never, the department was never able to agree that with the airport. And so this process is almost a continuation of that, if you like, to try and get that pinned down.
Okay, so 6 years later, there's no agreement.
No, that's, as I say, this is the key. Agreeing this contour cap is the centrepiece to the noise management system.
And what was that recommendation? Is that similar to what is being proposed now?
No, it's a smaller contour. It was proposed back in 2006.
Is it possible, Chair, that we could get maybe copies of that? Would that be possible?
Sure, yeah,
Would
absolutely.
be reasonable. Chair, next point is around the planning assessments for this is a very large-scale development, obviously, and is a strategic, often strategic importance as well. In terms of air quality, I notice there is a mention that in terms of air quality, the differences in concentrations of various pollutants. Is there a baseline for those pollutants?
Yes, there would be. I mean, when in the summary there, obviously that is what the airport have put forward. That's not our analysis of it. The Northern Ireland Environment Agency will do an analysis of that to see if they agree with that or not. But yes, there would be a baseline in terms of what's going on at the minute versus what they would predict to happen. With
So the baseline would be what's actually going on at the moment?
I would imagine so. Again, it's down to the Northern Ireland Environment Agency would have to advise us on that.
Chair, just I think it's an important issue because it does say in this briefing you've sent us that in terms of air quality, the differences in concentrations of various pollutants are described as insignificant. And my point is, where's the baseline? Where's the starting point of that? Because if it's starting at the current position, then obviously there may not be a huge difference. But if it's starting from a baseline of if there was nothing there, then it would be probably massive. That's my thought process. Maybe that's different. I'm happy to be proven wrong in that, because I do note that it's close to a designated special protection area, a Ramsar site, and an area of special scientific interest, an SSA. Now, just my constituency, while not of the same scale or economic potential, but I've just at a poultry unit refused planning permission because it's close to an ASSA. And in fact, it's quite a distance from the ASSA. It's not even adjacent to it. It's quite a distance, but it's refused, and that is, to that developer, that's as important to him as probably this is here. And I want to ensure that everything is based on the same assessments. That's all. And I know it's it's NIEA as opposed to yourselves, but obviously you are here on behalf of the service.
One of the reasons that the public inquiry got delayed the last time was because the NIA in particular had asked for additional information, and in particular because the proximity to the Belfast Lough obviously has those European designations on it. And that is one of the reasons why the additional information had to be submitted. So that will be looked at carefully and no doubt will be debated. But that was one of the reasons why we had to get extra information, was because of that. But as I say, if you would like particular or to be advised on the NIA's initial response to that, they haven't come back to us. Obviously, I'm quite happy to forward that.
That's fine. I'm sorry, just going back to the noise issue. If there is a noise cap, how is that actually enforced then?
Well, it would be enforced through the planning agreement. There would be a clause put in the planning agreement, which obviously would need to be worded with the lawyers, but it would essentially say that on a yearly basis you're not allowed to breach this noise cap through your operations. And if they did, then the remedy to the breach of a planning agreement is injunction. So it's not like the normal planning enforcement process. We have to go through enforcement notice and everything else. It's an injunction right away. So it's a pretty strong control.
And finally, the noise cap that was proposed and that was never got an agreement on, is the airport operating within that proposal or outside it? Not that there's anything you can do about it when there is no agreement, but I'm just wondering from their present position.
No, they're operating in excess of that. I'm not sure the exact figure, but they are in excess of it, yeah.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
They're in excess of what's being proposed?
No, sorry, in excess of the noise contour that was recommended by the previous examination in public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So for them to keep within the contour cap, that means they're not allowed to use certain types of planes, they're not allowed to land or fly too low, and would that be the kind of usual thing?
Yeah, I mean, the contour that was recommended through the last EIP was, I think, 4.2 kilometres in size. The one that they're proposing is 7.5 kilometres in size. Where they're operating at the moment is somewhere in between. But to say what they would say is, as long as they stay within that cap, there are other measures still in the agreement, including the number of flights, and also they have measures in place about the way there has to be a bias in and out over Belfast Lough, for instance, because of the noise situation. They have other measures in place about the approach and where planes can roll as they're coming in, which are all designed to try and limit the noise. So it's only one of a package, but clearly the cap is the key control, because it's the direct control on noise exposure.
It's most noisy, is that right, when they take off rather than landing?
Yeah, it's
more noise.
the noise
Yeah,
of the
it's
jets,
noisier, yeah.
obviously, as they take off, yeah.
There's no mention in your summary from their submission about remedial work with local residents. I mean, are they going to, would they plan to, say, install triple glazing for windows and things like that?
Well, there is a difference. There's DRD's legislation under the airports order actually have the power. Well, DRD have a number of powers, and they could go in and control noise now, actually, if they saw fit to do so. But one of the things that they can do under their legislation is, if any properties come within a certain noise level, 63 dBA, then they can set up a scheme whereby it would obligate the airport effectively to go in and provide triple glazing. Yeah. At the moment, there's no properties come within that. Okay. But DRD are fully aware that if there were properties come within that, it would be them that would implement that sort of scheme.
Okay. No more questions? Members content? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation and answering questions. So I'm sure we'll see you again soon. So you said the Belfast City Council's asked for an extension for the submission, so you have to wait until they submit it before you do anything more?
In reality, that doesn't stall the process. In reality, obviously, we'd start to analyse the concept, but it's just for them to give a corporate view. It's just,
when are they going to send theirs in, the Belfast City Council?
They indicated it was 2 or 3 weeks. It has to be agreed by the council corporately.
As long as that 2 or 3 weeks? They've been given enough time.
Yeah, no, well, I'm not entirely sure the council they obviously have different parts of the council and areas of responsibility, so it's obviously they have to come up with a corporate view, and they have to. It's going to take some agreement, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, members, we've raised a number of issues. Tom has asked questions, Cath's asked questions for more information. So we'll wait for them to submit to us the further information on your questions, and then ask them to send us the synopsis of responses when they have received them all by 2 weeks' time, when Belfast City Council sent them to us. So members content with that? So I'm sure we'll go back to that, the same issue fairly soon, hopefully. Yeah.
I was going to raise another issue. At the minute, the SPPS, which is the main policy now, is single policy that's being consulted on. Are we as a committee looking to do anything on it, or? I know that the Minister released it and it's now open for consultation, but I thought originally the Minister was bringing forward a brand new structure in relation to a single policy. But what it is actually a consolidation of all those planning policy statements that's there. And, that's grand if we agree with all those planning policy statements, but I think in some cases those planning policy statements needs looked at. The likes of PPS 18 in terms of the wind energy element, PPS 21 in terms of the non-farm rural dweller, PPS 5 in terms of retail and all of that. And I'm just wondering. No, there's specific ones there that there's issues with. Yeah. So in the absence of us starting the whole process over, which we wouldn't have time to do, there's no way going down the line of consulting on a single policy and starting the whole process. We have to use the bits that's there, and those parts are actually PPSs. I just wonder where we go as a committee with it. I mean, are we going to look at it, or any other members any views in relation to? Because in this case here, and I know that the major developments certainly will still lie with central government, but taking 5 or 6 years to make decisions on these things, have we an opportunity as part of the strategic plan and policy statement, an opportunity to input in relation to that? I don't know. It's just open for suggestions, or because I think the consultation ends in April. I think so.
Yeah.
don't have any views, or maybe we have enough work to undertake, you know. But I think it's just something the committee needs to be mindful of this policy statement, you know, this planning policy strategy.
Obviously, we can ask the departmental officials to come back and go through it in more detail with us. Minister made the statement about it, and we asked him, you know, when
Chairman,
he
I would agree
came
that
along.
sometime at some point,
We'll
if we get
bring-
an opportunity
we'll
just to
bring-
get a briefing on where it's at and what's, yes.
Yeah, and also, you know, by the end of the consultation, we always get the synopsis of responses. But if you want between now and then, you know, to ask them to come back, I'm sure they'll come back and go over the particular PPSs you want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, because that's going to formulate the main strat. That's the way I see it. So, at some point, certainly, if we get a briefing, I mean, I know we're busy at the minute, but
Yep.
okay.
Okay, members. Then we are on to the next item, correspondence at page 46. You have a copy of the terms of reference for the OFMDFN inquiry into the Barroso Task Force and a request for the committee to forward its views. During my briefing with the clerk, I had suggested maybe just a bit of a change of wording. I think we're going to send it to them. It's kind of tied down, let me see, 48. The try down, let's see, you can see there, like they have, 48. They have 3 or 4 items there. Which one was 40?
It's 49, actually,
49,
on the next
yep,
page,
48, 40, 49.
Yeah, keep going there.
Yep. They have there, in the middle of that, the terms of reference, there are 3 items. The second one is identify the outcomes from the task force and assess against the objectives. And it suggests that maybe, what did we say? Assess the outcomes against their stated action plans, rather than kind of a bit vague about identify the outcomes from what. So they must have an action plan. So if we suggest that, just a suggestion, if they would assess the outcomes against...
I'm a bit confused maybe in terms of what we're being asked for in that. I mean, they're notifying us from the inquiry. Are they looking at us potentially to suggest adjustments to their terms of reference?
Anything we want, yeah. If we want to input,
Looking for a response in there?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit uncomfortable, I have to say in one sense, I'm a wee bit uncomfortable with suggesting change in terms of reference to another committee's inquiry. I think it's really ultimately up to them, whatever they want to do in connection with
Well, they asked us.
No, I understand that. I'm not altogether sure it's maybe madly appropriate. I mean, you know, I think there's maybe a different kettle of fish of, we're doing this inquiry, do you see any impact on this inquiry in your area? But to some extent, to potentially shape what the terms of reference are, everything seems to be, to my view, maybe a little bit of a step too far in that regard.
Although, I mean, the Barroso Task Force certainly impacts on our work as well. You know,
Well, it doesn't. I mean, to some
yeah.
extent, if we were doing a inquiry into the environmental impacts of that, I think we set our own agenda and we answer that. I'm not sure, take madly kindly to any other committee saying, well, actually, we believe you should be adjusting this to do X, Y, and Z. But
Yes, we did send our terms of reference to other committees too, for them to look at, and
is that maybe just more,
Yeah.
ultimately, I'm not quite sure how much we were looking to change as opposed to sort of more keep people informed. But
Well, I just thought that second sentence just sounded to me from a kind of management background at some stage, just to say identify the outcomes. You know, just a bit too vague. If you say identify that from, you know, like earlier we said about baseline, you need a baseline. Where are they going to, you know, take the baseline and to assess the outcome? I mean, I'm easy. I'm not specifically saying must, but I just think from a management kind of perspective, that's just very woolly.
what are you suggesting, sir, as an alternative again?
I think would suggest. I think I put down on my notes assess the outcomes against their stated action plans.
Terms of reference to
Yeah. I suppose they set this against the objectives.
We could possibly write to them without suggesting they actually change their terms of reference and urge them to take into consideration the action plans.
Yeah, oh
Something
yes.
like that, would that be?
Yeah. Just maybe make it tighter or something, rather than. I don't mean to give them that sentence, but yeah.
I'll be here next week. If I'm away. I'll be here next week.
You never know. Yeah. Okay, members, then, are you content to look items 7.3 to 7.12 at pages 51 to 130? Okay, then forward work programme. Just one thing. Another committee, one of the committee chairs mentioned this. It's at page 132, members. Forward work programme, that if we won't schedule a meeting on the 22nd of May, which is polling day for elections, local government elections and European elections. Yeah. You never know. Could be in a few weeks. Yes. If we are still here, if we are going to still be here. Yeah. So, members, are you content if we don't schedule a meeting on the 22nd of May? Just in case we don't get the quorum as well, we can all turn up and no one around. Yeah. Okay, members, then, if you're content, then we just delete, we cancel that one. AOB? No? Yes?
Just one piece. It's finally come back to me about the taxi stuff. Bear with me, Chair.
Yes.
Chair, in terms of the Ravenhill issue, and I realise, I'll tell you what it was. It was in relation to that piece of legislation about keeping records on information about a contract, entering into a contract. There's been no information brought forward in relation to that, and it clearly states that. That was the issue. It says in paragraphs 1 and 2 there about a record of this request must be maintained by the operator. I believe that, and other members I think have asked questions through this committee. The member isn't here today at the minute. Yes, he's more familiar with it than most of us. But the issue over that particular thing was that, one, you're supposed to enter into a contract, two, keep records, and there's none of that done, and it clearly states that on those two pieces of legislation. So if you could find out from the department, please, in relation to that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Very much, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Then just next meeting, same time, next Thursday, 10 o'clock in the Senate chamber. Thank you, members. Nice and early today. And this afternoon, I'm going to Neogar for the afternoon session. Any members have time to go, or you're going to be in committees? Okay. So I think we're just going to be there and listen. We're not going to really participate too much. So I'll bring notes back to you all. Okay? Enjoy. Thank you, members. Thank you.